Hello, my name is Cheryl, and I'm your host for today's special on Midlife Crisis. This is the first of many episodes to come, and we're very excited to bring what we believe will be informative, powerful, and very daring topics. Some I'm sure you will not want to miss, so make sure and tune in each time. Have you ever wondered why people ask the question, how old are you? What is it that they're really trying to find out? And conversely, why are most people so reluctant to answer the question? We have psychologist Dr. Kubeck with us to help us shed some light on this and exactly what the heck is midlife crisis. I remember bending the truth about my age as young as 14. And what was happening was I wanted to start partying with girls that were a lot older than me. I was tall, so it was hard to figure out my age. And so the magic number at that time was 16, and I was 16 actually for a very long time. No one picked it up, but in my early 20s, you would say, to 30s, I was married, I had children, I was moving up the career ladder pretty quickly. And so when someone asked my age, I would comfortably answer accurately, and confidently. Mm-hmm. With that being said, would you say that the reluctance on answering the question, how old are you, does it have to do with the fear of maybe being judged status-wise?
Certainly. In mid-age, which is around age 40 through 65, physical appearance is a primary aging start. Mm-hmm. And women many times are judged by how they look, their reproductive viability, their value as partners, and much of that is how we look. And so if you ask me my age, I'm not sure I would tell you on television right here.
Yeah, no, and see, that's where the sensitivity, I think, comes in. Most people were around my age at the time. I was saying, my early 30s, 20s, and 30s, so it was fine. They asked and I answered. But I had another instance of this little secret in my late 30s. I lived in Miami at the time. I went dancing and I met the most beautiful person. I was certain that we were the same age, and when we started exchanging information, he was 10 years younger than me. That was uncomfortable, and it took me a little while to, to let him know. But, it's just very funny, because when you get to a stage in life where you look and feel good, you look a lot younger than you are, and you're enjoying the things that you enjoy naturally, is it okay to be young at heart, or is it irresponsible to do so?
Oh gosh, I think it's perfectly okay to be young at heart, because really, how old are you? There's the emotional age, there's the physical age, there's intellectual maturity.
Right.
Those don't necessarily go together. So a 40-year-old may be chronologically 40, experience-wise they may be 50, but physically they may be 35. So how old do they feel? In fact, if you ask older persons, how old are they versus how old do they feel? Many times it's a good 10, 15 years younger than their chronological age.
Right, right. So, some people say you can go with a younger person and, it's okay. But, for me, I don't think that a woman should go past maybe 6, 7 years, with someone that's 6, 7 years younger than them. I don't know. Because you think of the experience, you want to give that person enough time to have children, what have you. Is it, what would you say should be the gap? In Hollywood it's one thing, but outside.
Yeah, exactly. In Hollywood, we certainly have some examples of massive age differences there. But I noticed you're asking me about women and younger men, and you're thinking 5, 6, 7 years. What if you asked me the question about men and younger women?
Well, I was going to get to that, because in society it's okay, but, just focusing on the woman side of it, what is really the, because we'll get to that, but what is appropriate? Because like I said, you have a certain point in time where you have to go through that stage of, your midlife crisis, as we say, but what is the safe age where you can gracefully grow together and not have that problem of, she's older now, and what would you say? Is it 5 years, 6 years, 10? What do you think?
Wow. My personal feeling is it's whatever works
for the couple.
You, for the couple. But you know, when I look at some of the data with age differences in longevity, and women do outlive men, so maybe it would be really adaptive for maybe that 7-year difference for a woman to be 7 years older, so that perhaps they can go through their adulthood and late adulthood together and not spend that much time in widowhood. Saying
the time is really like 7 years. It's funny, in society today, I think women take a harder hit with the aging process than men do, because like you said, it's okay for a man to be with a younger woman, but with a woman growing older, it's like she stands out like a sore thumb. There are all these different pressures. She's got, if she's not married, it's even harder, I think, because she's got, it's like she's standing on a football field with the football, and the team is coming, to get the ball. You've got the men that are in her age group that is being manipulative to have her think that, lower your standards because you should be lucky to have me, you're growing older, you're done. And then you have society themselves that are like, well, shouldn't you be preparing dinner? You're somebody's mom kind of thing. And then you have the younger man that is kind of like trying to do you a favor. Meanwhile, you look younger than he is. So it's tough. It's tough for the woman. This has to be someone who is really conditioned. What kind of characteristics would you say this woman has to have to stand up to this kind of energy?
Wow, what you're talking about is something we call the double standard of aging between the two genders. And if you think about it, in midlife, men have silver hair, women have gray hair. Men look distinguished.
It's not the same?
No, it is definitely not the same, whereas women look old. Have you ever noticed that discrepancy?
I never noticed
George
that.
Clooney looks very distinguished. He's got the silver at his temples.
Yeah.
But, darn it, doesn't Jamie Lee Curtis look good for her age? What a statement is that?
Right, I never thought about it.
She looks good for her age. She's dared to go gray. We don't use the term silver.
Right.
So we really do have this double standard. Men in midlife are judged by their career accomplishments, whereas women still are judged by how they look, their relationships with others, and they're valued for very different things. And so we really do have this double standard.
It's unfair. It's unfair, and I think, like I said, the woman has to be really conditioned to be able to stand up. My personal view on this is that when you get to a certain age, because anyone can look great in their 20s and 30s, but when you get to that late 30 point, your 40s, and you've had the childbearing process, and you've gone through all the experiences, and you're still able to keep yourself up, I think that's the most fascinating part of it, because it's not easy. It is not easy to keep yourself up at that time. And to me, men that are in your age group, like older men, middle-aged men, should be gearing more to this group, if you will, because they're looking at the finished product. There are no more changes. It is exactly what you're looking to have at the end of it. It's the finished product. So it's very interesting. My next question is, what the heck is midlife crisis, and exactly what is supposed to happen to us around this time?
Oh, wow. Midlife crisis, we started using that term around 1965. And, according to the stereotype of the midlife crisis, particularly for men in their midlife, they look back, they're not happy with their careers, and, it's postulated that they're going to trade in their current life, perhaps the current spouse, for a newer, younger model, buy the convertible, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a stereotype. As it turns out, we have done decades of research now, and probably only 1 in 10 individuals actually experiences a midlife crisis. For most people, midlife is a transition, not necessarily a crisis. But we do have 1 in 10 that have a midlife crisis, somewhere between the ages of 40 and 65. Just looking at some of the research, for many it's in the mid-40s, if that does occur for them.
And is it, you're saying that it affects men more so than women?
Well, that's the stereotype of the convertible penetrating in the wife. However, it really does affect both men and women about the same. So about 10% of adults, both men and women.
And what about the women? Do they have any feeling? I know some women talk about hot flashes and stuff like that. Like, do we have the feeling of rearranging our lives? You're saying we don't have that like the men do? We want to get rid of the husband and get a younger man kind of thing?
The real issue is it a crisis or is it a transition? I mean, we have a variety of events that occur in midlife. So many times our children are becoming independent, perhaps moving out on their own, going to college. We have physiological changes like menopause that women go through. Many women go through menopause without any difficulty. Some have more difficulty. Even men do experience some changes with regards to sexual energy in midlife. So we have some of those. We start to see signs of aging. But then there are some positive changes. So many folks in their mid-careers, midlife, is the peak of a career. They're no longer working those low-level jobs. They've actually moved up in their career and find it more satisfying. So is it a crisis? For some folks, perhaps, if they haven't achieved some of the goals they set for themselves. Or for many, is it more of a transition? Yes, we experience these things, but let's try to look at it positively. What's next? What's our next stage?
Right. I think that's the challenge, to just, to do it gracefully. So what's the message here? Keep the confidence going, ladies. You should not have to settle for less because you're growing older. Ask for more. You know, a friend of mine had asked me, why am I not dating? That there's nothing wrong with me. I know that. I'm my biggest fan, and I want to be treated with respect. That's all it is. So stay confident in spite of, the resistance, and bloom, continue to bloom. Tune into part 2 of Midlife Crisis. We'll be discussing something called emotional intelligence. For schedule, date, and time, you can write us at info@midlifecrisis.com. Okay? See you then.